This is the Twin City News Around Town. A closer look at the people, places, and events around Batesburg-Leesville, Gilbert, and the Ridge. Presented by the Twin City News, Batesburg-Leesville's community journalism since 1925.
Probably the toughest question I'll ask in this whole thing. Is and was the town of Batesburg-Leesville ready for coronavirus?
I would ask, was anybody really ready for coronavirus? When it first started out, people didn't know anything about it, obviously. Just like when the flu came about a long time ago, people didn't know about it. No, I can't say that we had an action plan ready to go. I mean, we've had to build one along the way. This is new for us. Certainly next year, if this becomes a part of our normal life, coronavirus, every year, we will have a much better idea of what we need to do, a better plan in place. I'm not saying things have been bad. I think we've reacted well as a town. It has been reactionary this year, though, not proactive. I will admit that. But I think understanding the virus better now, hopefully vaccines coming out, treatment options coming out, I do think we'll be much better prepared if this comes about again next year. And to be honest, this is my first pandemic since I've been a town manager. So this was all new to me, but I will certainly be better prepared in the future when these types of situations come. So,
generally speaking, does the town have in place an emergency management plan for, obviously none of us could have expected that a pandemic would shut everything down, but does, generally speaking, the town have an emergency management plan that they follow in the event of an actual emergency?
There is an emergency management plan in place for the town. There are areas of it that need to be updated. With regards to pandemics, do we have an adopted pandemic plan for the town? Not that I'm aware of. But we have been talking with other cities and going off best practices and taking advice from the Municipal Association of South Carolina, CDC, DHEC, State of South Carolina. But this just opens our eyes. We need to make sure we have these plans in place and that we are prepared for these things when they hit. So, but we do have an emergency management plan for the town, and there is some language about it, but it probably needs to be updated.
Well, 2 Sundays ago, when the governor made his announcement at the Emergency Management Center, the town of Batesburg-Leesville was quick to step into action. Kind of explain your thought processes on that day, or even before that day, when you knew that something had to be done here at Town Hall.
Well, the conversation started, I was at a conference in North Carolina where they got the first cases of coronavirus before not first cases, but got it before South Carolina. A lot of conversations on the phone while I was at that conference because it was making its way and starting to spread throughout the country. As far as the build-up and what took place from the moment the governor made his announcement, it was one of them eye-opening, okay, we've got to get on this. We knew it was something we were preparing. We were having conversations. The first conversation we had was, what if school lets out? And what if school shuts down? What does that mean for our employees that have children and have to be home with them? What does it mean for the town? We didn't necessarily anticipate that restaurants would start being shut down, that we would have to close the doors to public facilities and make a bunch of drastic changes. But from the moment he made his announcement and issued the emergency declaration, it was 90 miles an hour. A lot of wheels turning, a lot of thinking it through. We were one of the first in the area to lock our doors to public facilities. That's a tough decision you have to make initially, but just thinking it through, we don't need people bringing it in here. We can't effectively operate a town if we just allow the public to come in and have access to the building. And so, we've been I would say we've been proactive since the announcement has been made, and even the day he made that announcement.
Well, and you, as you said, you were quick to lock down town hall, but you were also quick to follow the governor's guidance. But I would say it was also an act of compassion to say, we understand things are going to be tough. We understand that it might be tough for you to pay your electric bill or your water bills. We're going to do something about it. So you acted in a way that I think bought the town some goodwill, even though much of it was mandated by the governor.
Right. While it was mandated, it's the right thing to do. I think his mandate and all of his mandates have been the right thing to do. So it's not been a problem for us to quickly put those things into place. And we're watching what other cities do. Cities around the state are watching each other to see we're all different. We're all going to have unique and creative things that we need to do for our communities based on our makeup. But we're watching and evaluating other cities. We have a managers listserv. Managers are sharing information. Mayors are sharing information. The municipal association, we're following each other. We've taken some good ideas from others, put them into place. And there's some others that have called us and said, how did y'all do this? So it's information sharing. There's no need to recreate the wheel and the way of doing things. Just talk with your peers and see what's best.
Now that we're in this and everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop for the governor to say shelter in place, because it's happened in other states. It's happened in places that have many more coronavirus cases than South Carolina, but nonetheless, a lot of folks are waiting and anticipating that the governor is going to say shelter in place. If he says that, what kind of burden does that put on, one, the town, and particularly the town law enforcement to make sure that that's enforced?
It's a burden. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's a burden. And, we're in the same position as a lot of other law enforcement agencies throughout the state in that we're short manpower on our law enforcement side too. And so a lot's being asked of our officers when that occurs. But what's going to be defined by that? Is it shelter in place? Or the grocery store is still going to be open so people can go get food? Are people still are going to have to get to and from work? There's a lot of common sense that's got to be used by law enforcement officers and officials of the town when we do this. It's just making sure people aren't out mingling in areas that they should be at home. Knowing whether somebody's driving to or from work, you don't know. You just have to watch carefully throughout town. People have to have the ability to go get the food they need and the things that they need while they're sheltered in place. Our officers just got to use their best judgment, but it's certainly going to be a demand on them.
And there's going to be a certain segment of the population that's going to push back. They're going to say, look, ain't no cop going to tell me whether I can leave my house or not. And then it becomes a whole other thing for police officers. Are your law enforcement officers trained to deal with that type of pushback? Every
law enforcement officer is trained to de-escalate a situation. And we've got a great group of officers. They know how to work with people. They know how to deal with people professionally and like human beings. And I think, it's a everything starts with a conversation, not an accusation. And I think our officers are very good at having a conversation and not accusing. So when you see that person out and about and it doesn't appear like they're necessarily on a direct path to somewhere, maybe you flip the blue lights or you stop them and say, hey, what's going on? It's just having that conversation, trying to figure out what the situation is with them. It may make complete sense, but education, we always have to educate. Some people don't watch TV. Some people don't get on the internet. Some people don't follow social media. Sometimes we just have to educate people as well, and I think our officers will do a really fine job if it comes to that.
Beyond the public health challenge, coronavirus faces and poses a challenge for our economy, globally, statewide, and locally. How concerned are you about the current closures and about how long this might take until business as usual can return to Batesburg-Leesville?
I can say with regards to the current budget that we're in right now, I don't see any issues. Our business license revenue that we receive is based on last year's gross receipts. Where it's going to be difficult to project at this point is the budget that we're currently working on for next fiscal year. What impact is this going to have on business license, especially if other businesses are forced to shut down? We know now that hospitality tax that the town receives is going to be affected.
It's going to be a gut punch to hospitality tax.
Depending on how long this takes. Depending on how long restaurants are shut down. The longer they're shut down, the more impact. Now, we're fortunate in that we've not really committed H-tax funds at this point towards specific projects and have obligations for payment. So, I mean, we are fortunate that it's fairly new and to be in that position. But it's going to put a strain. The longer this lasts, the more strain it's going to put on our overall budget. People may not have the money to pay their property taxes. People aren't going to have discretionary money. Some people may not be affected, but some people will lose that discretionary money and can't go out and buy as much at Walmart. And it can affect business licensing, hospitality tax revenue. It could affect property tax revenue and people not being able to make those payments.
How does this affect this grand vision that Batesburg-Leesville has for revitalization? Just a couple months ago, the master plan was presented to town council of this beautiful vision for the long-term revitalization and beautification of Batesburg-Leesville. Coronavirus obviously has got to slow that process down.
It'll slow it down. It doesn't stop the vision. It slows it down. Every day that goes by that this is going on is just one more day it's going to take to do those wonderful, beautiful things the master plan study had in it. But those things are not going away. They will be there when this rebounds and recovers. If the market goes bad and once the market turns good, it'll be brought back up and we'll be ready to push forward. I still think there's a lot of stuff that we can be putting into place even during this time, things that maybe aren't as costly. We're not going to completely lose revenue. I mean, the drive-thrus are still open. The restaurants are still serving at this point, which is still going to generate some revenue, and we've got the money we had in the bank. I think there's a lot of groundwork that we can still start and have underway, engineering of certain projects, things like that. It may be just a little bit longer until we can pay to do the projects, but we can have the engineering work being done. We've got enough money at this point to be able to do that. So,
final thought. What would you say to the people who are listening to this, watching this on YouTube, that are looking to you, the mayor, and the town council for leadership in this time of crisis? What's the one thing you want them to know? The take-home message.
What I would tell people is listen to what's being put out. It's being done for your safety. Some people may think it's overkill, in which some people do think that. Listen to what the governor's saying. Listen to what the town puts out. We're not trying to control people's lives at this point. We're trying to keep people safe. And that's our mission. Everything that we do is in the best interest of the public. Just listen to what we put out there. Follow those directions. Understand that we're not doing this to create burden in your life. We're doing this to try and make sure that we don't have a bigger problem moving forward. There's hope. there's going to be an end. How long that's going to take, we don't know at this point. We hope that all the measures that from the federal government to the state level down to the local county and local level, we hope that all these measures slow things down and ultimately end this sooner rather than later. But it's only as good as people doing what we asked to do to help make that speed up and to try and get through this quicker. So just asking people to really, really hunker down and avoid that close contact and be proactive in washing your hands and sanitizing yourself to avoid getting this virus. So.
Well, I'd shake your hand for what you've already done, but I don't think we want to do
we'll
that.
air elbow bump.
We will air elbow bump.